let's get down on our knees and let's seek wisdom from God. And they all stopped and they prayed, and when they got up, they got it together and they put together a constitution which is the best one ever seen in the history of the world. Think about this. In 1831, Alexis de Tocqueville came to this country to study our government because he was flabbergasted. How in the world could a fledgling nation, barely 50 years old, already be competing with the powers of Europe in industry? How could we already have a AAA credit rating? How could this happen? And he, while he was studying our government, studied our educational system, discovered that in this country, education was the most important thing. It wasn't just for the elite classes, it was for everybody. Anybody who had finished the second grade was literate. He even went out to the frontier, found mountain men. They could read. They understood the branches of government. They could calculate. They could build bridges. What happened to us? How have we allowed all of that to slip? We have lost the education that propelled us to the pinnacle so quickly. Think about this. 300 years ago, if a farmer had corn or wheat to take into town, what did he do? He put it on a cart, hooked up his donkeys and horses, took it in the cart. 300 years ago. 1,000 years ago, same thing. 3,000 years ago, same thing. Within 200 years of the advent of this nation, men were walking on the moon. Completely changed the course of the world. We are different. Think about World War II. Nations falling like dominoes, one after another. The whole world about to become subjected to tyranny. Except for one thing, this nation. With the ability to send its young men from the cities, the suburbs, the country, to fight a war on two different fronts of the world. A country with the ability to send its young women into the factories to build more airplanes, tanks, and mortars than anybody could imagine. A country that, with its industrial might and its determination, changed the course of the world. That's the nation that you live in. That's the nation where you received your education. It is not an evil nation. It's a good nation. Amen. And of all the pinnacle powers, this nation never tried to conquer the rest of the world. This nation provided medical aid, financial aid to struggling countries, gave vaccines to countries where epidemics were going on. Have we made mistakes? Absolutely. Can we learn from those mistakes? Absolutely. And this is the mission of your generation. Make sure you understand our history. Don't be willing to throw it away for the sake of political correctness. Remember those things that made us into a great people. Don't let the forces of political correctness throw God out. You know, there a few years ago, some lawyers came to my wife and I and they said, you can't put your Think Big banners up in public schools because the G stands for God. And the First Amendment says there can be no government sponsorship of religious expression. Well, I reminded them that the First Amendment also says there can be no government suppression of religious expression. So we had a rather vigorous argument. And I suggested that we resolve it at the level of the Supreme Court, which seemed like a bold and reckless statement, but it really wasn't. Because I knew the very next week I was going to the Supreme Court to receive the Jefferson Award. So I figured I would ask while I was there, and I did. And Justice Sandra Day O'Connor said they were all wet. They had no idea what they were talking about. And of of course you could put that up, and it was no violation of separation of church and state. And people who say silly stuff like that, what do they really know about who we are? Do they realize that our founding document, the Declaration of Independence, talks about certain inalienable rights given to us by our Creator, aka God? Do they realize that the Pledge of Allegiance to that flag says that we are one nation under God? Do they realize that many courtrooms in the land on the wall it says, "In God we trust"? That every coin in your pocket, every bill in your wallet says, "In God we trust"? If it's in our founding documents, it's in our pledge, it's on our courts, it's on our money, but we're not supposed to talk about it, what in the world is that? In medicine we call it schizophrenia. And doesn't that explain a lot of what's going on in our nation today? And as you go forth in your spheres of influence, remember, it is okay to live by godly principles, of loving your fellow man, of caring about your neighbor, of developing your God-given talents to the utmost so that you become valuable to the people around you, of having values and principles that govern your life. And if you do that, not only will we remain a pinnacle nation, but we will truly have one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Congratulations.